What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the CBB Yapper. We are right smack in the middle of conference tournament season here, and as of this morning, only 15 of the 31 teams have secured the automatic bids here, so we have plenty of teams still fighting for their lives here with a chance to get into the big dance. Today's episode is going to be a little different than usual. We won't be doing the full game recaps like we have been in the past. Instead, we're going to talk about some of my pretty terrible mid major conference tournament predictions here and who actually took them home. Then we'll discuss some of the mid majors who have already punched their tickets to the big dance and the ones that I think can be dangerous, especially in the first round here. And we'll finish it up with some of the conference tournaments still yet to come this weekend and what days they will be taking place. So without further ado, let's get into it. Kicking off some of my terrible mid-major predictions here. This seems like it is going to be a pretty common theme for this section, as I clearly do not know mid-major ball. I definitely put a lot more focus on the major conferences this year, which is something I'll need to adjust next year a little bit. However, we'll start off with the College of Charleston in the CAA. On Sunday's episode, I had said that this was going to be the team to beat in this conference, and then they immediately lost to Towson that same night by 25 points. They just got absolutely run off the floor in that one. Just a really, really bad prediction from me, as they led for a grand total of 0 minutes in that game and just got dominated from start to finish there. Shout out to Hofstra, though. They bounced back after a long overtime game against Towson to take home the automatic bid against Monmouth in the championship. This is a team that I think is definitely going to be very dangerous come March. I don't think anybody is really going to be looking at them and saying that this is an easy matchup. I 100% believe a lot of coaches are going to be sweating this one if they see them lined up against them in the first round, but we'll talk about that a little bit later down the show here. Moving on to the Big Sky. Like I said, common theme here, but I shockingly got this one way wrong as well, and in pretty similar fashion to the CAA. While they didn't get it smacked around like Charleston did, they lost immediately in the first round as well on Monday. Idaho, on the other hand, was really impressive in this tournament. Even though they were the 7 seed, they came all the way from the first round and won 4 straight, all coming against higher seeded teams as well, aside from the first round. Obviously, this is probably where their season is going to end, but this was a really impressive run from Idaho to make the tournament here and cut down the nets. Moving on to Conference USA. I did tell you guys that this is a common theme here, but this was probably my most confident pick in the Liberty Flames, and they also just came out and lost in the first round of their conference tournament to a team they had absolutely no business losing to. However, that is obviously the beauty of March and why we watch. This week has been a great reminder to me and everybody else that all the previous games in the season get thrown out during this time of the year. It is all a matter of who is playing their best ball, and one slip up can ruin your entire season. I still fully believe that Liberty was the best team in this conference, but they didn't prove it, and they are going to be missing March Madness because of it. Obviously, this chip is still yet to play here, with the semifinals taking place tomorrow and then the final on Saturday. Out of the teams still left in Conference USA, I think I like Sam Houston to get it done, which obviously I need to probably stay away from taking chalk picks here, but I do think that Sam Houston is definitely the best team still available in Conference USA at the moment. Moving down to the Horizon League, I tried to get a little cute with this one. This conference seems to be one of the only conferences that did just have the number 1 seed take care of business here, but it wasn't really easy for them. They ended up only winning the chip by 3 points on Tuesday night against Detroit Mercy, who is still a very solid team. I had said Robert Morris as the winner of this conference, and of course, they also lost their first matchup in the conference tournament here. Just a really, really, really bad set of predictions here in the mid-majors. I definitely wanted to circle back on this because I definitely like to pat myself on the back a little bit when I get things right. So definitely wanted to emphasize how wrong I was on these conference tournaments as well. As you can tell, I did not spend much of my time watching mid-majors this year, but I will certainly try to correct that by Sunday. Moving on to the NEC, This is one that I finally got right here. Not really much to say, as I did take the number one overall seed in this one, so it really wasn't that much of a ballsy prediction there. However, the Finns do stay up here, and they stayed rolling at home. It would be awesome to see if they could get a game at home during the March Madness tournament. Obviously, I know that's not possible. I'm not saying it is, but it would be fun to see them get another home game because they are just really fun to watch at home, and their fan base is awesome. Hopefully, they get a little bit of travel out of their fan base for March Madness because it would be cool to see Finns up in the tournament. But I think obviously their run has ended here and there will most likely be a 16 seed playing a 1. But anything can happen. Purdue and Virginia proved that a couple years ago. So anything can happen. And I will be looking forward to the LIU team trying to keep it moving here in March. Just definitely do not expect much out of them. Moving down to the Southland Conference here, and we are back to being wrong again. I honestly can't believe that I did bet against McNeese. When I was looking at this conference, I wanted to take McNeese. Can't believe that I just went with chalk after having like 7 other chalk picks that I provided, but I really thought we were going to see SF Austin dancing here once again. However, Will Wade was certainly not lying when he said that McNeese would be set up in the future no matter where he went after last season, and I really have a ton of respect for that. He really left them off in a good spot, which is something that does not typically happen when you lose your coach that takes you on a deep March Madness run. They'll be dancing once again this year, but I really hope we aren't force-fed this boombox kid again. Just focus on the team, please. Just focus on the guys that actually did something to get there. Obviously, managers are still very important. I'm not saying that they're not, but let's give the love to the guys that are actually on the court and performing here this year, please. Moving down to the Summit League here, this is the last of my predictions from Sunday that has been solidified so far here this week, and I did get another one right here. However, this is, again, not really something to pat myself on the back for. They were a 10-point favorite coming into this one, and if they would have lost this outright, I think it would have only looked bad on me. However, I really do like this North Dakota State team, and I think they have a lot of intriguing pieces here for some upset potential here in the tournament, but we will, again, talk about that a little bit later down the road. Moving down the slate here, I'm not going to provide my typical previews here, at least not as many games. I do have 3 games that I have circled for today that I wanted to talk about very briefly. Then we'll go over some of the conference tournaments and when they'll take place this weekend and when those semifinals and finals are as well. However, we'll start off today in the afternoon with Louisville versus Miami. This one will be a day game and will be tipping off in a couple hours here, but I am really interested in this game. With Michael Brown being out for the entire ACC tournament here, this is going to be a very tough task for Louisville to even pull off just one game. Miami has been solid all year, winning a ton of really close games here at the end. Louisville has really slipped up here, on the other hand, in the past month, and will really need this one to boost their seeding potentially. However, shorthanded, I just do not see that happening. Jay Lucas has had the Hurricanes playing great ball here, and he has really had them all bought into the mission, it seems. He was the only other coach in the ACC, aside from maybe Ryan Odom, that I would have been okay with winning the ACC Coach of the Year. Perhaps that's my bias, as I obviously am a Duke fan, and Jay Lucas was a former Duke assistant, but I think that those two were clearly the best coaches in the league this year. I can't lie, though, this team is just getting slept on very heavily. A lot of pundits are, of course, jumping off the Duke bandwagon here, as they only really ride it if they think that they can win it all. With the injury to Foster, that was the perfect time for them to all jump off here, while also simultaneously downplaying the injury to LJ Cason for Michigan. Funny how that works, but that's neither here nor there. With that being said, a lot of teams have seemingly picked everyone but Duke and Miami to win the ACC championship here, and I am just really confused on that. I do think that UVA will most likely make it out of that side of the bracket, but I'm going to put my neck on the line here a bit, and I'm going to ride with Miami to beat them. I have a tendency to back teams that I think are getting disrespected, and I think it would be absolutely hilarious to see a Duke-Miami finals after everybody kind of counted them both out here. Moving down the slate here, I do have 2 night games circled for tonight, the first one being UNC and Clemson. Maybe my ACC bias is showing here, but I really need to get eyes on this one. I, of course, will be watching the Duke-Florida State game as well. Do not get that twisted. but I didn't think that that really needed much of a preview for that one, and I really hope that Duke doesn't prove me wrong on that regard. However, this one should just be really another great matchup. Vegas has this one set as a pick'em essentially, and I think that's about right, to be honest. UNC has not been good away from the Dean Dome this year at all, but Clemson has just been very average all year, to say the least. With Caleb Wilson out for the year, Carolina has a very big opportunity to make a strong statement here. I think the committee is going to be looking at this game very heavily and will have very strong implications on seeding come Sunday, making for a really intriguing matchup here tonight. Moving down to the last game that I have a preview written for here at least is this FAU and North Texas game. Since I have been so bad at predicting mid-majors here, I wanted to get my eyes on another good mid-major game. This one does look like it's another pick'em according to Vegas, and seems like we should be set up for a great night of matchups here. This one will take place at the same time as the UNC game, obviously, so we're going to need to practice our March Madness setup to be able to watch both of them. Of course, there are tons of games on here today, and I will be working on that dent in my couch while I work, taking in all of these games, but these are just a few of the ones that kind of stood out to me when looking at the schedule this morning. For Friday, there are just so many games, most of which are not really set in stone in terms of the matchups here, so it's really hard to provide any previews for these upcoming games tomorrow. However, my suggestion is for tomorrow, just call out sick from work, as long as you obviously have the days to call out next week as well. But Friday is just going to be loaded with quarterfinals and semifinals throughout the entire day, which is just what makes this time of the year so special for college basketball. Moving on to one of my other mid-major predictions, I did kind of get another one right, at least up until this point. I did predict that the America East Conference would be between Vermont and UMBC, with UMBC taking it home. I actually did also misspeak on my last episode as well. I thought that this was going to be a neutral court game, but this will be a home game for UMBC. I probably honestly did that for a couple of the conference tournaments, which was just a complete lapse on my part. Completely forgot that many of the mid-major tournaments do still have home games in the tournaments, so definitely should have checked out that before giving my predictions, but luckily this one kind of works out. With both of them losing their road matchups this year to each other, I'm going to stick with UMBC in this one. Playing at home in the conference championship is just such a huge luxury, and I think that will propel UMBC over Vermont, but definitely do not count the Catamounts out. They have a history of making the tournament here out of this conference, and they will certainly not be backing down in this one. With that being really the only finals matchup solidified for Saturday, I do not really have any other previews here, like I said, but we will have a loaded day of semifinals and finals on Saturday following it. So definitely keep up and keep checking the schedule to see the upcoming matchups and when they will be slated for. On Sunday here, it looks like we're going to get 5 championship matchups by my count. We get 3 to start off the day, starting off around noon. First, we will tune into the Ivy League Tournament Championship. Then, at halftime, I will be turning on the A10 Championship. As bad as I was at predicting mid-majors, this is kind of like assigning homework for myself. However, the SEC Championship will also tip off at 1, and immediately when the Ivy League Championship is concluded, or if it's getting out of hand as well, I will switch over to that game immediately. Then we get 2 more to take us into Selection Sunday. The American Conference chip will tip off at 3:15 on Sunday, with the last auto bid coming from the Big Ten at 3:30. To end today's show here, I did want to talk about some of my favorite mid-majors that I think have some real shots at providing some upsets here in the first weekend of March Madness. Obviously, with my last predictions section going really, really wrong, I'm hoping that this one is a little bit of a turnaround here. But starting with the dreaded 12 seeds, there are really 2 teams, I think, with automatic bids so far. Just want to make sure that that's very clear. These are only teams that have automatic bids so far that I think have a real shot of pulling off some upsets here, at least in the first round. This High Point team, I think, is just a really interesting team that could definitely raise some eyebrows in the first round. I do think that they're a little bit weaker for a 12 seed team, but they seem like a team that can get hot in a hurry here. While they shoot just below 36% from deep as a team on the year, in their championship game against Winthrop, they shot the lights out. They shot 45% from deep as a team and just ran them off the floor in the championship, which was just a really impressive showing for them. Now, is that something that they can sustain? Probably not. In their previous games in that conference tournament, they shot a combined 16 of 53 for a clip just above 30%, which that's definitely not going to be a winning recipe in the first round of March. If they want a chance at being a Cinderella this year, they are going to need to carry that shooting momentum from the conference championship into next week. Of course, that is more than possible, as we've seen it time and time again, but this is probably my least favorite upset out of the 12 seed options. Moving down, I have Northern Iowa as another team to watch here. This is a very familiar face who is no stranger to first round upsets. They are floating between the 12 and 13 range, it seems, and I think that will have big implications on how much I like them. As a 12 seed, I obviously like them a lot more, as they would be slated for a matchup against some weaker 5 seed teams in comparison to UNC and Vanderbilt. I think those are two very winnable games for them, and they will certainly be holding on to hope that some bid stealers arrive here in the next few days to try and keep them above that 13 seed line. Moving down to the lower seeded projections here, I think Hofstra can be another dangerous team here come next week. This is another team that looks like they have been solid from deep all year, but could be a team that catches fire here in the first round. They'll need to shoot much better than their 36.8% clip that they shoot on the year as a team, but they certainly can. This is a team dominated by guard play and is one of my favorite recipes for upsets in March. While I am obviously a full believer in establishing the paint, I think three-point shooting and veteran guard play is one of the most dangerous things about mid-major teams coming into March. Most of them don't have the height and size that the big schools do, but they make up for it in their guard play and three-point shooting. I love this Hofstra team, and depending on who they're lined up against, I think this is going to be easily one of my favorite upset picks for this year. Moving down here, I have McNeese circled as another team that I think could be a team to watch here next week. This follows a pretty similar theme to Hofstra as well. McNeese is just another team that is dominated by guards and absolutely loaded at that position. They have 3 guards who average over 12 points per game, with the other 2 sitting at about 8. They don't really have much height, as their tallest 2 guys are only 6'10", but that wasn't really a problem for them last year. This is another team that I think just has the makeup for an upset here in March. Will it happen? Maybe, but I do think one of these two between Hofstra and McNeese will be moving on after the first round. To end the show here today, I have one more team that really stands out to me as a team that could potentially provide us with a very big upset here on the first weekend. And this is going to be a team slated around the 14 seed in North Dakota State. While this is obviously a much more uncommon upset seed, I think that this is the team that can absolutely do it. They don't have much rim protection here either, which is pretty similar to the other mid-major teams that we just discussed, with only 2 guys averaging over half a block per game. But again, I think this is less important for mid-major teams, especially come March Madness. They are, again, dominated mostly by guard play. They have 2 guards who shoot around 38% from deep on the year, and this Wheeler Thomas kid is a legit problem. I think this is going to be a name that people quickly learn next week, and he is certainly in my top 5 players for these lower level teams. He really impressed me in that championship game against North Dakota, and I am really looking forward to him potentially making a name for himself here in March. However, that is all I have for today's episode. I know today was a little bit of a briefer episode, but we will have much more to talk about next week. I did want to briefly update you guys on the schedule and what this week will look like for the CBB Yapper here. On Sunday, there will be no podcast episode, but I will be doing a live stream for Selection Show. Hopefully, I have everything figured out. Still trying to get this stuff figured out and hammered down, but I'm still trying to make sure that I have everything to do so. It does seem like I will be able to do it. Just want to make sure that it runs smoothly if I do. I will post something on my channel outlining the details, when to tune in, and how to tune in. I also have decided on the schedule that I will be shifting to here during March Madness. We will shift from Thursdays and Sundays to Wednesdays only. This way, I can break down all of the major games from the weekend and then provide some brief previews and predictions for the upcoming matchups as well. Until then, start working on that dent in your couch here so it's nice and ready to go for next weekend. I appreciate anyone and everyone who tuned in, and if you enjoyed, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, and join us back on Sunday for Selection Show.